Are you looking for a quick and delicious weeknight meal? I think I have the perfect solution for you here. This is my sticky garlic chicken. I've added some broccoli this time, but you can add any vegetables you like or just leave them out. This is so tasty and very satisfying, and you won't believe how low in bites and points it is. So if you're interested in how this is made, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is one of mine, and this is for my sticky garlic chicken. Now you do not have to use chicken for this. If you have the bites, points, calories, etc., you can use pork in place of the chicken. You can use whole chicken breast. You can use chicken cutlets. You can butterfly the chicken and cook it that way. So you do have options if you don't want to do it the way I'm doing it. I will sometimes just cook the whole breast or a pork chop and cook it in the sauce and just have that as the main protein on a plate with other things rather than topping rice with it, which is what I'm going to do today. I'm also going to be adding some broccoli. These things are not in the recipe, but I will go over that in a second. Okay, so for the ingredients, to get the odd things out of the way, the things that are not really part of the recipe, I have 2/3 cup of rice here. This serves the chicken, so I'm making 2 portions of rice. And I'm going with a 1/3 cup rather than a 1/4 cup because it's only 1 bite more for the 1/3 cup. You get a little extra. And so this is going to be 6 bites. And those are actually the only bites that are going to be in this meal is from the rice. With the rice, I have double that amount in water, but I did add a little better than bouillon, the roasted garlic version. You could add chicken broth. I wouldn't add all chicken broth. I would probably do half chicken broth, half water. But you could do all chicken broth if you want. I decided to add a little garlic flavor to mine. And so this is 1 1/3 cup, which is double the 2/3 cup. I have my cooking spray here. I have here just some broccoli florets that I've chopped up. I'm going to show you how I prepare my broccoli. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to add them into the chicken or put them on as a side, but we'll see. You know, I fly by the seat of my pants half the time. But I have the broccoli here, and that is not part of the recipe. I didn't even measure it because it's 0 bites for me, so I didn't really care that much. I just wanted to add something to bulk up the meal. If you didn't want broccoli, you could do something else. You could do carrots, you could do cauliflower, you could add peas or some frozen Chinese vegetable mixture to the chicken after, but I'll go over that once we are cooking. I don't know what that was. For the actual recipe, I have here 12 ounces of chicken that I have cubed up. You don't have to stick to chicken, and you don't have to do it so that it's topping something else. But I will discuss how you would change that up once we get to that point. I have here a 1/4 cup of rice vinegar, 1/3 cup of brown sugar replacement, 2 tablespoons of garlic, which may seem like a lot, but this is called sticky garlic chicken. And if you're not a fan of garlic, well, you can cut it down a little bit. It'd still be good, but it is called sticky garlic chicken. I have here a tablespoon of cold water because I have a teaspoon of cornstarch that I'm going to make a little slurry, and you don't want the cornstarch going into hot or even warm water. Once it's in heat, it starts to contract, so you'll have like clumps of cornstarch if you put it directly into hot water. So you always want to mix your cornstarch in with cold water, then add it to whatever hot sauce you're doing. You never add it directly because, as I said, it will clump as soon as it hits that heat. Now the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of hot sauce. You can play around with that as you like. As many of you probably know, Paul is not a fan of spicy foods. So I put about a half a teaspoon in here that I'm going to add just for a little background note of heat, and I can add more hot sauce at the table if I prefer. I have here 2 tablespoons of a low sodium soy sauce. You can use whatever soy sauce you want. 2 tablespoons of sugar-free ketchup. I am using GU's, which is one of my favorites. I've also used the no sugar added Heinz, which is very good, but that one starts adding bites or points sooner than the GU's does. So I prefer using the GU's. And then I have 1 tablespoon of minced ginger, and that's just out of the jar. I did not go through the fuss of mincing it myself. I also didn't mince my own garlic. It's from a jar. Make things easy on yourself. If you want to do it yourself, by all means, go ahead and do so. But I tend to be a little bit of a lazy cook in some regards, and it's just easier to buy the jars. Those are the ingredients. I'm going to start cooking my rice. I'm going to show you quickly how I cook my rice. It's a little different than other people may do. And I did show it previously in another video. I don't remember which one. You're lucky I remember that I did it in another video. But I figured I'd show you that. I'm going to show you how I prepare my broccoli, and I'm going to cook my chicken. So give me 1 second to shuffle a few things around and we will get started. Okay, so for the rice, I'm going to take my small little pot here, put it over medium-high heat. I'm going to spray it with a little cooking spray. Add in the rice directly to the pan. I'm not boiling the water first. I am adding this directly to the pan, and then I'm going to stir to get some of that cooking spray to coat the rice. And this is, I often will toast my rice like this for a couple of reasons. The toasting gives it a nice depth of flavor, but also it will kind of solidify some of the starches so you don't get as starchy of a rice. And so that's why I prefer doing it this way. I know many people will rinse off their rice beforehand, and I will on occasion, but typically this is the way I do it because, you know, I don't want to make too much fuss. So I'm going to let this heat up, get a little toasty. It'll probably be about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we will move on. Okay, so it's been about 3 minutes. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of browning on some of the grains of rice. Not all of them. You don't want them all browned. You just want like a little hint of color there, and you can definitely smell the rice. So that is what you want. Then we're going to add in our water. And it's going to, once it hits the hot pan, it's really going to get agitated, like, whoa, I'm suddenly getting very hot here. So expect some steam and splashing to go on. And I have your lid ready. That wasn't too bad. I had my lid ready just in case I needed to cover it over. You want to keep this on medium-high for now until the water starts to boil. And you can see the water's a little tinged with a hint of brown because of the browning of the rice. Okay, it's starting to come up to a boil. And as I've said in other videos, you can tell it's at a good boil when you see it start to boil, you stir it, and then when you stop, it starts to boil again almost right away. That shows that it's ready. So I'm going to cover that. And I'm going to reduce it down to a low, medium low, but I'm going to do that over here so I have this burner ready for our broccoli. So let me move this over. We'll get started with the broccoli. Okay, so while I'm waiting for this pan to heat up over medium-high heat, you want the pan for the broccoli to be very hot when you're ready to put the broccoli in. So we need that to heat up. While I'm waiting for that to happen, what I'm going to do is take the water and add the cornstarch to it. This is just 1 teaspoon of cornstarch, which is not going to add any bites or points. I'm on the Healthi Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan, and that's what I'm basing this from. Whatever your plan is, it may be different, but I'm going to mix the cornstarch in with a tablespoon of water, and you may need to keep stirring it as you pour it over the chicken because cornstarch does like to settle. So you're going to pour this over the chicken to coat that, and then just toss the chicken around so that that cornstarch slurry will get all over it and coat the chicken. And then we're going to set this aside and let it sit for about 10 minutes or so. It doesn't have to be an exact 10 minutes. It could be less, could be more. But you just want that cornstarch slurry to kind of cling to the chicken. So that is set, and our pan is nice and hot. So I'm going to take it and spray pretty well with cooking spray. Now, my broccoli florets are going to go right in here, and I am not going to touch them for at least a minute. Once you make an even layer. You can touch them to make an even layer here. Now, I did not come up with this method of cooking this broccoli. It came from America's Test Kitchen, and the broccoli comes out perfect every time. So you want to let it sit here undisturbed for at least a minute. Usually I go 1 minute, let it brown there, and then toss it a little bit to let it brown elsewhere. So let me let that sit, and we'll be right back. So it's been about a minute. Let's toss this around a little bit, and you can see that there is some definite browning going on where the broccoli was sitting on the pan. That is the Maillard reaction, which I've talked about before, where browning can caramelize the sugars inside of the food, the natural sugars, and really enhance the flavor. Just gonna get these moved around so that a new part is touching the bottom, and we'll give that 1 more minute and I will move on from there. All right, so the broccoli is just about ready to move on. I forgot to mention, you want to make sure you have a lid for whatever pan you are cooking the broccoli in. Just going to stir that around once again, and you don't want to turn this down. I know it might seem like you shouldn't have it on medium-high heat, but trust me, don't turn it down. Now we're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of water and immediately cover that. Now we're going to let this sit and steam for just 2 minutes, and it's done. So once it's done, I will usually add like a little spray butter, some salt, some pepper, some herbs maybe. It depends on how I'm going to use it. Still not decided yet if I'm going to add it to the chicken. I think that'll depend on how much sauce is left over at the end, whether I decide to add it to the chicken or not. But we will see. So let me give this about another minute and we will move on. Okay, so it's been about 2 minutes and I just wanted to show you, I'm going to turn this off for the moment, that it's very tender now. It's steamed, you got a little color on there, a little caramelization, and then you steamed it, and these are delicious. That caramelization really adds a nice little flavor. If you prefer them much softer, because right now it's kind of that crisp, tender state. If you prefer them a little softer, I would turn it down to medium after the 2 minutes and then let them steam a little bit longer. But that's the way we like them. So that is done. Gonna bring in the other pan. And I have about 10 minutes left on the rice. The rice, I forgot to mention, is going for 20 minutes, which is standard for rice. So that's got a little bit of time left. So while we're doing that, let me turn this back on to medium high. I'm gonna let this pan get hot like I did for the broccoli. So while this pan is heating up, let me set the chicken aside. We're gonna mix together our sauce. And all we're gonna do is just throw all of the other ingredients for the chicken right in to another bowl and mix it all together. The ginger, ton of garlic, the ketchup, the soy sauce, and my hint of hot sauce. It says 2 teaspoons in the recipe, so you can do with that as you will. You can add a little bit, you can add none, it's your call. All right, so that's mixed well. Just want to make sure that that brown sugar replacement has dissolved. And if you're wondering which one I use Swerve, which is a 1-to-1 replacement for sugar. The golden sugars that you might see that have like a little golden color, that's not really a brown sugar replacement. It does have a little of that caramel flavor, but it's not really a replacement for brown sugar. So you want to get a brown sugar replacement. I mean, you could get away with using regular granulated sugar replacement if you want, but the brown sugar just adds a little caramel note that is really very tasty. All right, so our pan is hot. I'm gonna spray that with some cooking spray. You wanna spray it fairly well. And then we're gonna add in the chicken, and I'm going to use this spoon to add it in. Now what this cornstarch slurry is going to do is just help us to get a little bit of browning. It's not really, I mean, some people might say it tenderizes it a little bit, and it may, but most of the reason that I'm using it here is for help in some browning. You want some nice color, and rather than using flour, we are just going to use the cornstarch and not have to worry about adding any bites or points because we only used a teaspoon. Okay, so that's in there. We're going to let this sit for about 3 to 4 minutes. You can see if I try to move them, they don't want to really, they're kind of sticking a little bit. That means they are not ready to move. If you've ever cooked chicken, pork, steak, whatever, and then you turned it and part of it stayed in the pan, it's because it was not ready to flip. If some of it peels away, you turned it too soon. So you just let it sit there and trust it. When it's ready to let go, it will let go. So let me let this sit for a minute, clean up a few of these things, and I'll be right back. Okay, so it's been about 3 minutes. I'm going to flip these over, and you can see that some nice color forming there. Really going to enhance the flavor and the texture. And the rice is almost ready. You know, let's just sit here now for another 3 to 4 minutes. And there are a couple of them that I will probably flip, like this little guy once he wants to release. There's a little raw spot over here. I'm going to let that release on its own, flip it over so that gets colored. Anything, here's a little bit here. So just check and turn them as you need just to get those pieces cooked through. But this isn't going to be all the cooking they're going to get, so don't worry about them being done. They will be done by the time we are finished. Okay, so now the chicken is looking good. And what I'm going to do now is add the sauce right into the pan. And we're going to let this cook until it thickens, about 5 minutes. Now the timer for the rice has gone off, so let me set this over here on this burner so that it can continue to cook. And then I'm going to bring in the rice, because here's what I do. Once the rice is done, you take a fork. You do not want to take like a spatula or a spoon and start stirring it, because that's going to mash it. And you're going to get that sticky, smudgy rice. Take a fork and just toss it a little bit. They call it fluffing, fluff the rice. And that is ready. So now, this is another thing that I do that most people do not. I'm going to take a towel. I'm going to cover the rice and put the lid back on. I'm going to set this aside and let it sit while I'm cooking the rest of the chicken, getting that sauce cooked down. And what the towel is going to do is the steam that's still in there is going to go up, get trapped in the towel, and not be able to go back into the rice and make it mushy. And that is another tip that I learned from America's Test Kitchen, is to use a towel over your rice to let it sit here, let that steam settle into the towel, and you'll have a nice fluffy rice. So that's the way I do it. You can cook the rice however you like, but I thought I'd show you how I do it when I'm cooking. So let me move this back down here. And this piece of chicken here is kind of thick, and I'm going to use that as my guide to see how well it's cooked through. Just going to cut through with my rubber spatula. That's how easy it is to cut through. That's looking pretty good. So I just need to reduce this down. So let me give this about another 3 or 4 minutes to reduce, and I'll be back. Now, as the sauce is reducing, I did want to mention how I would do this if I were doing like a whole chicken breast or a cutlet or a pork chop. What I would do is do basically the same thing I did, coat it with the cornstarch slurry, cook it in the pan as I normally would, about maybe 5 minutes per side, depending on the thickness. Then remove it from the pan. Add the sauce to the pan and let it cook down a little bit. This is done, turning that off. Add the sauce to the pan, let that reduce, and then add in the chicken and cover it. So that way it'll keep the chicken, the pork, whatever it is, moister by covering it up. But if you cover it up too soon, the sauce isn't going to evaporate enough to thicken like it has here. And there's plenty of sauce, so I am going to add in the broccoli. I've made an executive decision here. That's what I'm doing. Now you can add all sorts of vegetables in here, as I said. You could add in like one of those frozen mixed Chinese vegetable things. You could add in cauliflower, carrots. Now, I cook my carrots and my cauliflower the same way I did the broccoli. However, because the carrots especially are so much thicker, I let them brown a little bit longer than I do the broccoli, and I let them steam a bit longer. Probably about 10 minutes of steaming, and I have them on medium heat just because they are so much thicker. Broccoli is kind of in between the two, so I will do that, maybe brown it for about 4 minutes, and then steam it for about 6 to 8 maybe. And sometimes I do a medley, which is really challenging because I have to do the carrots, steam them a little bit, then add the cauliflower, then steam that a little bit, then add the broccoli, then steam that a little bit. But it is a nice little medley to have as a side. But anyways, there is our sticky garlic chicken. Let me clean up a few things and we will go over the nutrition facts. Okay, so here we have a perfect portion of rice and our sticky garlic chicken, now with added broccoli. Now, the reason I don't mind giving myself a nice generous portion of rice is because this chicken is just 0 bites, even with the broccoli. As I said, I'm on the Healthy, Better, Balanced plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. You input everything into your recipe builder as you are using it, because even from one product to another, it could alter the bites or points. But as I made it here, this is 0 bites, so the 6 bites that I get from this meal are all from the rice. You could use cauliflower rice and make it an entirely 0 bite dinner if you'd like. If you're following calories, the calories for just the chicken alone, not with the broccoli, not with the rice, is 250 calories. And if you're following macros, the fat is 4.4 grams. The carbs are 39.2 grams. The fiber is 0 grams. And the protein is 39.9 grams. Again, that's as I made it, and for just the chicken and the sauce, not for the broccoli and not for the rice. But it's a nice, delicious, satisfying meal that is really pretty quick to come together. About the time it took to cook the rice, I could have this done as well. So I'd say within a half an hour, you could have dinner on the table. Unless, of course, you're recording a YouTube video, and then it always takes a little bit longer. But you're not doing that, are you? But I hope that you enjoyed this meal and this video. And if you did, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you're looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. Share any of my videos if you think there's someone out there who would appreciate the content. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Also, comment down below if this is your type of meal. Would you prefer it with whole chicken or pork chop or chicken cutlet? Let me know how you would use this. Now, the recipe for this will be on my blog, and I will link directly to that recipe below in the description box, as well as to the blog as a whole. If you're looking for any of my recipes, that's where you'll find them. And there is a little magnifying glass icon just at the top of where the recipes start. So if you're looking for something rather than trying to scroll through and find it, just type in, like say you're looking for the banana nut muffins I did last week. Just type in banana nut, hit search, and it will come up with anything with banana nut in it. Also down there, you will find links to my Amazon storefront. If you've seen anything that I'm using that is of interest to you, it may be there. My Fetch rewards, my Built Bar rewards, and my social media. Here's my Instagram handle if you'd like to follow me over there. And there are 2 Facebook groups that I'm part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there. There's lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, support, and people. So I think it's about time for us to have a nice, delicious dinner, and I hope you'll soon be doing the same. So until next time, bye.